whenever you criticize how terrible Pep Guardiola has been this season, people will give you excuses. It's only one bad season. No, it's not. He's got credit in the bank. No one does. And all of those excuses. And I'll be here to dispel them today, just in a quick video. I don't know how long this video will be actually, but let's go back to 2016-17 first and to 19-20 to look at what a bad season really does look like. Now, 19-20 we actually won a trophy, the Carabao Cup, and we finished on 81 points. That is 6 points more than the maximum tally Man City can get to this season. And to get to that tally, they have to win 9 games in a row, which includes Everton, which includes, who is in really good form right now, Aston Villa, which includes Crystal Palace, who tends to be an upsetting team for Man City, and Man United. There are some difficult fixtures left there for Man City. But assuming they can win all 9 of them, they will get 75 points. 6 points worse than 19-20. In a Premier League season, where Premier League clubs are worse, where Arsenal is weaker, where Chelsea is weaker, where, well, Man City themselves of course are weaker, Aston Villa is weaker, Newcastle is weaker, even Liverpool is arguably weaker than last season. This Premier League season has seen a complete drop-off from almost every team in the Premier League. Even the relegation clubs have never been this weak as a collective. I know there's a relegation club out there, I believe it's Derby, that finished on 11 points, but as a collective, relegation has never been this weak. So in a Premier League season, against the weakest opposition you could ask for, Man City has performed worse than in 19-20 or 16-17. Not to mention that Man City performed worse in Europe as well, as both of those seasons, Man City actually reached the round of 16. Shocking, isn't it? Man City actually reaching the round of 16. Some people would call me crazy if I told you that Man City played the round of 16 football once. But in, I believe, 19-20 we got knocked out to Lyon. Yes, 19-20 was Lyon in the quarterfinals. Now that was one-legged as well. That was a two-legged game. Maybe Man City could have advanced, but well, let's not talk about Lyon. That's not why we're here. The thing is, yeah, Man City has not had one bad season. This is a terrible, horrendous failure of a season. At least in 16-17, you could use the excuse where again Pep Guardiola finished on 78 points, 3 more than the maximum Man City can get to now, in a more competitive Premier League. But at least you could argue that back then, Man City was in a rebuild stage. Now, there is absolutely no reason why Man City this season should be in such a rebuild state. You see, Man City this season has been offered a lot of money by the board. Pep Guardiola was offered money in the summer, and he rejected this. People will say, oh, will you keep talking about this? Yes, because it's relevant. Because Pep Guardiola is trying to keep Gundogan. He's trying to keep Bernardo Silva. He's trying to keep a lot of players, De Bruyne, who people have been saying are the problem. When you talk about a rebuild, like in 16-17, you are talking about keeping all the core players such as Vincent Kompany, Fernandinho, Kevin De Bruyne, Aguero. You're not actually talking about selling off the players that Pep Guardiola has been with for years. Pep Guardiola lacks the ruthlessness to make the decision to sell some of these players that he's been with for a long time. If Pep Guardiola was still at Barcelona, Xavi, Iniesta, Busquets would still be his midfield. He is incapable of realizing that his players are dumb. That is a fault on his part. When we talk about why Alex Ferguson is the greatest of all time, it's not because he won a three-peat, it's not because he won a treble, it's not because he won a cup with Aberdeen, it's because he was at Man United for more than 20 years and he kept rebuilding them from ground up. He kept sacking players who had run through brick walls for him. Pep has never done that. Pep has only seen players leave on retirement. He did not want Fernandinho to leave. Fernandinho retired. He did not want Kompany to leave. Kompany decided to leave. David Silva, same story. Aguero, same story. These are not players that Pep had the gut to sell off. To say, listen, you're not good enough anymore. So when you say you can't keep hammering home at the transfer window, I can. Because it shows us the future of Man City if Pep Guardiola is going to be given the reins again. Now you could say Hugo Viana will take over in transfer window. Do you think Pep will accept that? Do you think Pep Guardiola will sit there and say, yeah Hugo, you do all my transfers for me and I'll just sit here and take it? You think that? No. Pep keeps playing Gundogan to get that automatic clause triggered in his contract so he stays another season. I believe he needs 3 more games for that, correct me if I'm mistaken. Pep Guardiola has already proven that he is inept in rebuilding. Oh, he rebuilt Man City? No, he didn't. When people say a rebuild, yeah, this is the problem with the term rebuild. People don't know what it means. A rebuild does not mean signing a player every year until you've got a completely different squad. That's not what a rebuild is. A rebuild is a single window, get 6 players out, get 6 players in. That's a rebuild. Not a player leaves against your will, so you are forced to replace him. That's not the same. It is not at all the same. Now you could argue that Pep did a rebuild in 16-17. Absolutely. But that doesn't matter because he had no rapport with any of the players he was selling off or binning off. We see this a lot in international football, where coaches who manage a golden generation are incapable of bringing into young talents. And so a new coach has to come in and say, listen, these old golden generation talents, they are not good enough anymore, we will stop bringing them. That happens in every aspect of football. Pep Guardiola is no Alex Ferguson, will never be Alex Ferguson, because he lacks that ruthlessness. And until he proves me wrong, I can say that with confidence. Now you go on to the actual football, the actual tactics. Now this has actually been going since the treble season. Since the treble, Pep Guardiola lost obviously Maresca into the dressing room. A lot of people will point to that as significant. I think it has something to play there, but I don't think it's I don't think you can point fingers at Lilo and say it's all his fault. The fact is, Pep Guardiola's tactics have been suicidal since the 4th beat season. But in the 4th beat, he had Rodri. And now he doesn't. In the 4th beat, Phil Foden was stepping up. You can't expect Phil Foden to score the goals from outside of the box, season in, season out. Phil Foden was not being made the best of by the system. Foden was making the best of the system. He had to step up, score banger after banger. There was De Bruyne in there to get balls into the box. Foden profited of that quite a lot. Alvarez when Haaland was injured. Erling Haaland himself, who if you actually look at Erling Haaland, played incredible for the entire season. The only moment where he scored less than his own average, but actually at the average of every other Premier League striker, the only moment in the season where he had that was right after his injury. And after being rested against Aston Villa, where he won 4-1, he came back and he scored or assisted in every game again, except for Fulham, where he actually played a good game, but just didn't get any goals or assists. So when people talk about the season, the 4th beat, being, okay, you won the title, you're the best manager, well, no. Picture this, the best manager in the world, with a bunch of people that have never played football, plays against an average manager who has the best players. So best manager with worst players, or average manager with greatest players of all time. I'm talking Zidane, Lionel Messi, Cristiano Ronaldo, Pele, all in one team. Maradona, Pirlo, Beckenbauer, all in one team. And he's playing against a team with the likes of Rasmus Højlund. Who is gonna win? Well, it's gonna be the average manager. So it's not always the best manager who wins, is it? So why is there this myth that if you win the league title, you're the best manager? That's not how it works. Last season, Pep Guardiola was not the best manager. Mikel Arteta, factually speaking, did better with a worse squad. Now, Arteta is not a better manager than Pep either. Because here's the thing, Arteta is a good tactician, but he's a bad strategician. Strategy is your overview of a whole season. Tactics is what you do in a game. Mikel Arteta fails at strategy. Pep Guardiola has been failing in the transfer window. Will Pep Guardiola fix that up? Maybe, but even if he does, his tactics are woeful. He's currently failing in both strategy and tactics. So when we're saying, next season will be better, not if Pep keeps performing the way he does. Because the deepest underlying issue, beyond players being old, playing poorly, or anything like that, is terrible game management by Pep Guardiola and terrible tactics by Pep Guardiola. The biggest problem Man City has had this season is not De Bruyne being washed, Bernardo being washed, which everyone knew before we went into the summer. The biggest problem is Pep Guardiola's tactics. So when we talk about a bad season, no, a bad season is not anywhere near this bad. This is terrible. We have been knocked out before reaching the Champions League round of 16. Oh, we played Real Madrid. Well, you wouldn't play Real Madrid before reaching the round of 16 if you beat Feyenoord. Can I ask for beating Feyenoord? I think that seems reasonable. If you beat Feyenoord, you don't play Real Madrid. You were 3-0 up. Went 3-3. And now I know people will say, oh, but the Feyenoord game, because this actually pisses me off. Big up to Martin, by the way. I know you watch these videos sometimes, but this actually pisses me off when people say this. Against Feyenoord, Pep made the substitutions people was asking for, and it's backfired. No. When I say play the young kids, I'm not saying bring on Gundogan for Kovacic. No. That is not quite what I want. Like, I get that there's confusion there because McAtee came on. But Gundogan for Kovacic is the exact opposite of good game management. Especially with the form Gundogan was in at that moment. We probably still win that game if Gundogan doesn't come on. And here's the thing, Gundogan can play decent games for us, but not in the 6. He can play decent halves, I should say. A full game he's woeful, but in a half of football, he can actually play a good half. But not as a 6, as an 8. So you bring him on against Feyenoord as a 6, taking off your only 6. And now, during my Feyenoord watch along, I said, that's a terrible decision, but we should still win. And we didn't still win. But you get my point, right? This is terrible game management by Pep. It's been ongoing for a while now. It's the 4th beat season. Again, terrible tactics built out by the players. And terrible strategy. Terrible transfer strategy. We knew that Rodri was on an injury coming back from the Euros. We didn't get any replacements. We knew Rodri was overplayed. That he needed rest. I knew that since June, before the fucking Euros began. Or somewhere in the Euros group stage. I already knew that. Pep knew that. He just didn't get a new player in. So, we can go on and on, I think. But Pep Guardiola's season, this season, has not simply been a bad season. It's been woeful. Terrible. And if he gets a second chance, which he probably will, he needs to do better than this. He cannot start next season being this bad and suspect to survive until October. Because let me tell you, the board wants Champions League football. The board wants trophies. The board wants money. You know how you get those 3? Together. You don't get them separately. Champions League football is not enough. FA Cup is not enough. Champions League plus FA Cup is what the board wants. Now, one season where Pep underperforms what he's expected, the board might be like, yeah, okay. Now watch Man City next season. After we give this man 300 million. What if we don't play as good as we should? Pep will be gone. Because let's be honest, Pep Guardiola is ruining his own legacy with these performances. You can't have that, can you? From a Man City board perspective, you can't have your best manager of all time, according to all of these people, which I don't agree with, but we'll get into that later. You can't have your best manager of all time ruining his own legacy with woeful performances. And if you tell me he won't ruin his legacy, Kyle Walker, Bernardo Silva, Ilkay Gundogan, Kevin De Bruyne. Do I need to explain any of that? If so, you've been living under the rock. He is absolutely ruining his own legacy right now, and if he doesn't move on in time, that will only get worse. This season, if Pep Guardiola announces I'm leaving at the end of the season, people will suddenly be like, oh no, we miss Pep, and people will forget all about the terrible season he's had. But do this third season in a row required Pep to be sacked? That's a very different story. That is a very different story. But I said earlier, and I suppose we'll end the video off on this, because I've been waffling for a while now. I said Pep Guardiola is Man City's best ever manager. And a lot of people misunderstand what that means, so let me explain what I mean by that. I'm talking about Man City alone. Solely Man City. Pep Guardiola is a better manager than Joe Merker. But I'm talking solely Man City. What they've done for Man City. And I think Joe Merker has done more for Man City than Pep Guardiola. Not in sheer number of trophies won, not even in time stayed, because I think Pep has been here longer now than Joe Merker, but in what they've done for the club. What Joe Merker did for Man City is he took them into a new bracket of existence entirely. He made Man City a big club, put them on the same table as Arsenal, Liverpool, well maybe not Liverpool, Man United, Chelsea wasn't a big club yet, Tottenham, at the time. Of course, Man City would end up falling behind again, but at the time, Man City was considered the biggest club in Manchester in the 70s, because Man City was actually good in the 70s and Man United was getting relegated. Big up Dennis Law. And Man City became an entirely different club. This was a second division club that Joe Merker took over. Won second division, survived the first division, won the league title, won the FA Cup, won the Cup double, Carabao Cup and a European Cup Winners' Cup, and completely changed how Man City was as a club. And that arguably set us up for 1976 as well, where we beat Newcastle in a Carabao Cup final, which Liverpool can't do. Cheers. That is more important for Man City, I think, more big for Man City, than what Pep has done. Now, I have said that with a caveat. In my first ever video where I talked about this, I said that with a caveat. I said, if Pep Guardiola reaches 30, or gets Man City to 30 major trophies, he becomes my greatest Man City manager of all time. Man City is on 29. If Pep Guardiola wins the FA Cup this season, he becomes, in my opinion, our greatest of all time manager. Which is why it's twice as important that we protect his legacy, and twice as important that we move him on in the correct time. Because if you have your best ever manager, like Arsene Wenger, staying way overdue, having the wrong reason in his mind why he's staying. He's not staying because he thinks, I can win, I'm gonna keep going, I'm gonna win. He is staying because he thinks, I can't leave them like this. He's not in it correctly. So he has to probably leave. If he's not gonna leave in the summer, but if next season these performances are this bad, at October, he has to go. Simple as that. And there's no excuses for Pep anymore, and this has been way more than just a bad season. I've waffled for long enough. Thank you for watching to the end. Like and subscribe if somehow you haven't already. And I'll see you guys on the next one.